Hey everyone, welcome to the Career Catalyst podcast. I'm your host, Rory Devine. Today we have an amazing guest, Jim Rinaldi, the former CIO of Jet Propulsion Laboratories, JPL, NASA, his former board advisor at Innovate UCLA, where I met him, and he's the current advisory board member of Avasant as well as Spark AI. We're going to be jumping into this in-flight, mid-run, because some recording that we had issues with. So we were going to do this in two parts. You're going to be hearing part one right now. But I'm going to drop us into this. And again, thank you to Jim for his time and his perspective. And thank you to everyone for joining. I hope you enjoy what he has to offer about his career, where he thinks people's curation of their career can go, based on what he's learned in the past. What I did take away from everything he's had over a 52-year career is, frankly, everything he has learned and done and accomplished is relevant to today to curating your own career. So hopefully you enjoyed as much as I did. Thank you.
Okay, that's really great. And Jim, thank you for that. I know that was a broad-banded, wide spectrum question, so full apologies on that one. We will circle back and let's go back to maybe at the beginning of your career and tell me, what got you into technology? Were you following a curiosity? Was there a mentor involved? So tell me, how did I gave some very significant titles in your career, but I think what will resonate with our listeners right now is what got you into technology? What was your thought? Was it on
Well,
purpose? Did you fall back into it?
it turned out to be on purpose. It was deciding what I want to take in college, and I was going to schools in Florida. And I had been advised by many people to get in business administration. And I couldn't think of anything more boring to get into. So I was a science kind of a geek. I was going to be a physicist. I loved all kinds of different science, but I got into computer science because that was something realistic and something really emerging at that time in the 70s, the style of computer science at that time. And that drove me, and I've never looked back, that drove me to want to apply, first of all, learn computer science, and then apply what I learned to solve problems and to create opportunities. And that's what led me in my career. I was I have a very patient exterior, but I'm very impatient interior. And so I had to learn quickly. I wanted to try everything, and I wanted to be part of places I could learn. So my first job was, while I was in school, was a bank data processing company, and yes, we called it that back then, and worked the third shift so that I could go to school during the day and things like that. And so gave me a few coin, and that allowed me to learn how business worked in a different way. And so that was while I was going to school. By the way, I've been working for 52 years, so this has not been something I started with a end date well in mind.
Right. And you're still learning, especially in the
I'm
last few
still
years. You're
learning.
still, but
Absolutely,
I'm
absolutely.
hearing you are a duck on the pond. You're very calm on the surface, but very furiously pedaling underneath. Is that how I hear
I'm
it?
very competitive too. Yeah, it's a strength. First of all, I've always, when I learned to be and act like an executive, I learned that you show a sense of urgency, but never a sense of panic. And that creates a confidence, and it gives you the opportunity to succeed in many different things.
So you said you had a passion for science, and it sounds like computer science was the more tactile thing that you could kind of feel in front of you, which is
Yeah,
why you went there. It sounds like
yeah.
you were able to blend that in with other science when you went to JPL. So could you tell me how you ended up from Florida to Pasadena, in
Yeah,
that kind of
let
respect?
me. First of all, I learned that I really enjoyed working with scientists, and I did that at one of my first jobs after college. Well, during and after, was the work I did with SEM organic chemicals. So I worked with chemists, and I was I got to be as creative as I ever wanted to be with some of the hardest languages in the world to code in, and I enjoyed working with the chemist and doing column fractionization and things of that nature for a chemical company. So that bodes well for me later. And so I went to a company that made modems at the time, Paradigm, and I learned how a business operates and, quite frankly, how it shouldn't operate. And met my wife, and then we went to Marriott, and that was because a friend of mine recruited me into Marriott in Washington D.C. area, and in doing so, I spent 16 years there, and so I learned everything about customer care that you could learn that a computer science person doesn't just get born with naturally. So that's then after 16 years at Marriott, it was like, let's try something new. And I went to IRS, and believe me, that was something new. But we made some accomplishments there, and I was kind of proud of that. But man, what a hard place to work. And then I
How
went
did
to
you make the
FDA.
jump? Was that a personal network connection as well, or did they find you? How did you jump from the
Well,
Marriott private
the
sector?
commissioner of the IRS at the time, Charles Rosati, very famous man in the D.C. area, started his own IT company and things like that. A friend of mine called me, who was a recruiter, and he said, Jim, can you just do me a favor? Can you just interview with these guys just to do that for me? And I said, sure, why not? Well, it was the most fascinating interview I've had. And so Charles recruited me. And so I left Marriott, which was very difficult to do because I was really invested in the company. And so I ended up joining IRS. Didn't have the best time, but also had a health problem. And that health problem turned out to be helpful for me finding the FDA, because that was about health and things like that. So I went to FDA, had the best time of my career. It was a short time, it was only 3 years, but I just enjoyed the people, enjoyed what they did, and how noble, they were there for noble reasons, and it was just a lot of fun. And then I got recruited to JPL, and at the time my wife wanted to move to California, and I wasn't sure. I had a couple of other offers if I wanted to stay in the DC area, so I went to JPL. Now, why is that important? The FDA had scientists and researchers, and and then go beyond that to JPL, which of course is all about science and engineering and doing sometimes the most impossible things you can do. So that's how I got
I
there.
found I found that resumes you often tell a story, but if you read them from the beginning to the end chronologically, they may not. But on hindsight, they you can see how one informed the other as you made those moves. So,
Yeah, yeah.
you're a very, very well networked person, and especially out here. And that was one of the first things I noticed about you. It seems almost effortless. Is that where you said you weren't born with that as a computer science? So was that
Oh
something you
no.
learned in DC? Like, where did that kind of come in your
Well,
career? Because I
part of it, I grew up at Marriott. I would say to be an executive, be a director, be a vice president, be a senior vice president, and you watch others. This is the technique I think everybody should do: is watch people you admire and learn from their style. Learn something from them. Bill Marriott is an amazing man, amazing company, and you could learn a lot from him and the executives around him, and so I did. I took advantage of that, and you learn some traits. So how to treat people, how to present, how to communicate, how to translate, which is the hardest thing for a lot of IT technical people. Translate the tech into normal language so you can have effective communications. And so I hope I learned to do that well. In many cases, I think I had.
That's fair. I think if you asked me the number one trade skill of a technologist, I think it would have to be translation. I think
Yeah,
just
yeah,
inherently difficult or internal people who use an exclusive language that is very acronym
uh,
based. I've never truly
yeah,
understand it. It almost
Well,
seems very on purpose.
that made us important because we were different. We couldn't speak the business language or the language of business very well. So the fact that we could speak the language of technology made us feel, and this is my own, it, it worked for me. It made me feel more important because it was what I knew. And then when you get in front of important people, you kind of show off what you know. Over time, was not good, and it did not work well with a lot of people, and myself included. So I learned how to be a little bit more of a businessman who ran IT versus an IT person who was very technical. I was very
Yeah,
technical in my young days. Yeah.
that's where I see the jump. I always tell people hard skills or technical stack will get you in the
Yeah.
door, but the soft skills will get you promoted. And that
Yep.
seems to be ringing true here. So you mentioned you were recruited again to JPL. Were you recruited by the entity itself, or did you have another recruiter friend? And then did you jump right into the leadership seat from there?
No, Josh Groban, the singer's dad, Jack
Okay.
Groban, recruited me. Which I didn't know Josh or anything, but I just found it, it's like his dad was fascinating. I had no idea. And then he told me, and it's like, wow, okay.
How did you leave that part
California.
out of the story? Yeah, that's great.
So
So
Jack
they
is a
just saw
great,
your background and said that they could use you. And did you, what
yeah,
was your first official title when you went over to JPL?
CIO.
Oh, okay. So
CIO. I
you
was
brought
their
it.
first executive level CIO. They had, little pockets of IT all over the place, and everybody could call themselves whatever they wanted to call them. But I came in reporting to the head of the lab and to also to just make executive decisions. And they wanted me to fix a lot of things. And luckily, inherited a really strong team with I didn't have to revamp everything. I just had to organize it better, and
Mm.
that's what we did.
So you said something a few minutes ago, and that sounds like an inflection point in most technologists' career. Uh, when do you know that you have to make the jump from technologist into business or to the liaison to the business to kind of talk the languages?
Well,
When is that a good indicator for someone?
well, I am going to tell you a real brief thing. At 20 years old, I became a supervisor of this bank data processing third shift, and and they made me a supervisor at 20 years old. And so there were some people there who accepted that pretty well, and there was one person who didn't. And so I said, well, if you don't want to work, because she didn't want to work, I said, you're fired. Turns out I couldn't really fire her, but I didn't know that. And the next night she comes in and we hug each other and, almost cry, all that stuff, because it was like firing your mother, basically. And so that was kind of weird. But I learned something. When you're managing people, when you're guiding people, that that is what you have to do. And that was something I never had experienced before. So I learned how to do that, and then each job I got after that, I went very technical at Paradigm at the modem company, um, and I was learned how to be a manager because the management I had was so bad that I said I can do this job, and I did. And so I got promoted and became, a technical services manager, systems programming manager back in the day, and that's where I learned. Okay, now I'm dealing with people who have all kinds of issues, people who die, people who succeed, people who need to be motivated, and wow, you learn a lot when you have that kind of responsibility, and then from then on, everything was about people and knowing what the technologies could do so you could apply them for business gain. And that's what I learned. And that's the journey into management, but it was a weird start, to be honest with you.
And did you actively choose management, or did you see titles that you were chasing after, and you're like, I can do that job,
No,
or did you? No, you
no,
were just following.
I was chasing bad management out. And to do that, I had to become a manager. Otherwise, I was perfectly happy being very technical. I mean, bits and bytes technical. And and now as I'm this age, I almost wish I was still technical because you could have so much fun with AI and quantum computing and things of that nature. So anyway, yeah, I did it because I just couldn't survive under the current management I had. It was so bad. And that manager who I had, he was a nice person, don't get me wrong. He ended up reporting to me. And that was kind of a weird dynamic. But over time, I moved around, went to Marriott, like I said, and Marriott, being there 16 years, you certainly pick up a few things about how to manage.
So are you of the school
And
of thought that you learn from good managers and bad managers? They're both teaching
oh,
you things?
absolutely, absolutely. I believe that management needs to evolve as much as we want companies to evolve and technology to evolve. As much as we want digital transformation to evolve, I think there should be a management transformation. And there has to be, because you can't manage the same way that we used to manage. And people still care, people still hurt, people still want to. If you can get, so here's my transition. When I started seeing more people who work for me or who had worked for me become CIOs, that made me the most proudest accomplishment I could ever achieve. The
Rinaldi
second
coaching
was,
tree. That's great.
the second thing was we won, and this is when I was at JPL, we won best places to work for like 10 years in a row. And that was something I could be very proud of because it was anonymous. I couldn't play the numbers or games. And that excited me more than any personal accolade, CIO 100, Hall of Fame. All those are fine, but that was I knew I had made the right transition when those things occurred.
That's great. Now, I want to pull on a thread that you mentioned earlier because I feel like that dynamic is coming back largely now. And you were mentioning that there's an age dynamic where you were more technology competent or literate than the people reporting to you. What I'm seeing currently in the market is the AI native college graduates coming in and just having a better technology stack or a more functional understanding of how to deploy new tools than people they're reporting to. And they're trying to help them. I think the term that we're using right now might be AI roamer or forward deployment engineer, FEDs, and the younger people who have the skill set to kind of help optimize workflows and kind of improve management, it's getting met very coldly. So how would you speak on that based on your experience coming up as a young Turk and having to manage with the legacy groups?
Well, you know, today's technology becomes tomorrow's legacy. And so don't get so married into how great it is, because it too will mature. Everything matures. Cloud was very exciting when it first came in, and we used the hell out of cloud early on. At the same time, cloud is absorbed everywhere, but yet we still have data centers. Yet we still have other things that, compete with that. So be careful the shiny horse you want to ride on because it may change over time or tarnish over time. But utilize the technologies of the day. I'm an emerging technology nut. I love emerging technology. And one of the beautiful things I got to do at JPL was create emerging technology that people cared about. And that excited me more than most things. I had some good people who worked with me who believed in the same things, and the lab enjoyed it. They wanted, because we let them participate with us. The lab, the users of IT participated with us. So for me,
Okay, so that was part one of our two-part podcast with Jim Rinaldi, the former CIO of JPL and current advisory board member at Spark AI. If you need him, you can find him on LinkedIn. I will add contact information in the notes of this show. But stay tuned for the second part of this. It's a great one, and we will talk soon. Thank you.